Hello and welcome to part two of Open Source for Creatives, presented by myself, Hadiza Saadu, the Small Business and Nonprofit Engagement Specialist here at Kansas City Public Library, and Miranda Pratt, who is our Wikipedian in residence. If you joined us for the first session, you are already familiar with what open source technology is. But if you're new here, let's go ahead and take a moment to define what open source technology is. Miranda, would you like to define it for us? Thank you.
Yeah, open source technology is any kind of software that has the source code as open and free on the internet. That means that you don't have to pay money to use it, basically. And if you know how to code, you can customize it. Open source technology is like a whole broader movement where people advocate for free internet stuff. And last time we covered Gimp and Inkscape, which are two open source image editing softwares similar to Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator, but free and more customizable, although sometimes you get different results if you use the Adobe program. So whatever, float your boat. But yeah.
Awesome. So today we are going to cover the same tools that we did last time, but just a little bit more in depth. We're going to start with GIMP. And then we're going to introduce a couple others for you. I'm going to be covering a little bit about Audacity, which is an audio editing piece of open source software. And Miranda, I believe you will be covering another piece of software called Openshot very briefly. And are you going to be covering Inkscape at all this week? No, you're not. Okay, excellent. So I will go ahead and take the reins here and share my screen as I pull up GIMP. Excellent. Miranda, can you see my screen? Awesome. Okay. Just had to make sure. So if you joined us last time, you may recall this image, this red hibiscus that is pointed to the sky. And you may recall that I walked us through how to add text to an image, how to select part of an image, and a little bit about how to crop an image. Today, we're going to go a little bit more in depth into more experimental territory. There's just a lot that you can do with GIMP. Again, to recap, what we've already done is we have added a text layer, which is shown over here on the right hand side with this icon with the A. We cut a part of the original image, which is this red flower, and pasted it into a new layer. And so just so that you can see the effect of that, I'm going to click on this icon over here that I'm hovered over that looks like an eye because it is an eye. And I'm going to click on that so that I am hiding that image. Now we can see pretty clearly that where that part of the image used to be. And once I click on it again, it's back. So that just shows you how you can either show or hide a layer. So what I want to do is just focus on this red part of the flower here to get into more experimental territory before we get into working with how to create slices to insert into a web page. I'm going to hide the two layers that I'm not concerned with, which is the text layer here and the background layer below. And now all we have is this middle layer, which is our pasted hibiscus flower from the background. And I am going to go over to this part of the taskbar called filters. And underneath this line is a list of all kinds of filters that I can apply to this image that kind of, just, I guess for a more cohesive term, all of these filters are going to do something to the image to kind of beef it up or distort it or make it more artistic. I'm just going to show you the way that I have played around with this in the past, just to create something different out of what exists on the page. So one thing that you can do is play with light and shadow. And one thing that I like to do is create a vignette. And so once I click on that part of the tool, I have pulled up the vignette window, and there are several different presets that this filter defaults to. We can play around with the radius, and once we do that, we can start to see where that radius actually sits. If I drag it over to the left, we can see that the radius becomes smaller, and so the image surrounding is shadowed. And once I drag it over to the right, we expand that radius and therefore blow out the vignette proportion, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's see if we can center this somewhat. All right, this is gonna be a pretty weird image, but this is just for the sake of showing you a way to play with the tool. We can play with the softness. And if we're not sure really what that means, again, we can just drag this cursor to see how it changes from left to right. So dragging it left, it looks like it's becoming sharper. Dragging it right, it is becoming softer and more, not transparent, but softer. Just like it says, softness. Gamma, what is gamma? Let's see what it does. I'll drag it over to the right. And it looks like it is making the image brighter or darker, depending on which direction you go. Proportion, let's see what happens when we play with the proportion. It's probably not the best example since we don't have the full image, but you can get the gist of how this works in terms of experimenting with the different parameters. Squeeze, I have no idea what that is. Let's see what that is. So squeeze looks like it is squeezing the circumference, or so to speak, of the vignette itself. If I drag it over to the right, and if I drag it over to the left, it's squeezing it. Okay, now I see how this is working. If I drag the squeeze variable to the left, we are squeezing it this way. If I drag it to the right, we are squeezing it this way, horizontally. Okay. Then we can also play with the center, which shifts where the vignette even starts. So if we're doing it on X, we're going horizontally. If we're doing it on Y, we are going vertically. And last but not least, we can also play with rotation, either by using the arrows or dragging the cursor around this circle here. So that's a vignette. There's a whole bunch of other filters you can play with that get even more wild. Distorts are really interesting. I'm just gonna show one very quickly, just so that you can see like the extent to which GIMP can go as far as manipulating an image. I think I want to do a lens distortion. I love this one because it really messes with the image, and you can, if you're trying to go for something more surreal, this could be something that's really cool. So playing with these presets, we've got main, which sort of folds the image if you just drag it over to the right, and then it looks like it's kind of like dragging. It's hard to describe these things. That's why I'm just kind of showing this visually. You can just see how it changes. You can play with the edge. Let me set this back to 0. Set it back to 0. You can also zoom in or out. And as you can see here, we're not changing anything outside of this selection. We can also shift on the x-axis, which is not doing much for this image. Let's see what it does with y. All right. Experiment womp. And we can also brighten the image through the lens distortion, if it will allow me to. That's lens distortion. There's other forms of distortion. You can apply a lens, which is a little bit different than lens distortion. Here, this is working with something called refraction. So the main parameter we're using here is the lens refraction index. And when you drag this over to the right, you can see how it distorts. Again, hard to describe. And you will play around with this with the different selections that you have. But you can see that the lens is distorting the image within the selection again. So if we are at 1, it's almost to the original. If we drag this over more and more to the right, we can see that the image has become even more distorted to the point that the original image does not fit within the selection. So play around with that as you wish. I'm going to drag this back. That way we have something recognizable to work with as we get into a little bit of web design. All right, what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to select each of these eyes here so that we can see each of the different layers. And I'm gonna say I'm pretty much done with this image. Yeah, I played around with some filters. I didn't like any of them. I like this. So I want to put this into a web page that I have ready. Gimp is really awesome in its ability to help you create a website or a web page using an image that you have manipulated in Gimp. The first thing that you want to do, though, before you can even start to think about that, is you need to consolidate the entire image into one layer. So that's why I've gone ahead and made each of the layers visible. Now I'm going to go up to this taskbar and I'm going to click on image. And I'm going to go to this option down here called merge visible layers. And once I've clicked on that, I'm gonna just go with the default settings here and click merge. Now, if we hover back over to this right-hand side to look over at the layer view, we see that we only have one layer to work with. Now that we have one layer to work with, I am gonna unselect and make sure that nothing's selected. Perfect, okay. Now that we have one layer and nothing's selected, I want to slice this image. That way I can load it into a web page. And Gimp allows you to do that. So what I'm gonna do here is go back to filters that we were just in. And we were in this second section here where we were working with the different types of distortion and artistic filters. There's a lot in here. And now we're gonna scroll almost to the bottom and we're gonna go to web. So what I'm gonna select here is this last option called slice. Okay. Now that I am in this Python foo slice window, I believe that this is using Python coding. Don't quote me on that. What we're gonna do is basically tell Gimp to slice this image depending on how many slices I want and in what direction. So I'm just gonna call this what it defaults to, which is slice.html. And I'm gonna keep all of the default settings here. I don't want to create a separate image. Yes.
I don't think we can see that box. It might be a separate window that you need to share.
Oh, interesting. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Oh, it is. I am so apologies. That really is a separate window. Okay, apologies. This is the window that I have pulled up. And so now you can only see that, right? You can't see the image anymore. Okay, well, that's okay. So once you have okay, so just to recap what I've done, since you cannot see it on the window right now, what I did was back in Gimp, I went to the filter section of the taskbar and I scrolled down to web, and then I selected the last option from web, which is slice. And I have opened up this window called Python foo slice. And now we are looking at the default settings that we can play with or not before we go ahead and slice the image to create the slices and the code that would go into a web page if that web page is ready. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and just say okay and see what happens here. Oh. And now the screen sharing stopped. Let me try that again. Okay, I'm going to share this screen one more time, that way you can see what it looks like again. And now you can see that I have selected the number 5 for space between table elements. So that just creates spacing between the different slices. And now what's supposed to happen is once I click on OK, which you cannot see because Zoom is not allowing me to. unfortunately. What happens then is guidelines are created in the image, which have then represent the different slices. And I can't show that to you right now because it keeps kicking me off of screen share as I do that, which might mean that it's taking up too much power on the computer. So, if that is something that you are interested in learning how to do, I am absolutely available to help guide you through that on a one-on-one meeting, which will be shared as far as the link to schedule that with me. It will be shared in an email with this recording, as well as the recording from Open Source for Creatives Part 1. So now I think I'm going to go ahead and just segue on to introducing you guys to Audacity, which is another open source piece of software that focuses on editing audio. If I could just have this open, there we go. Oh, so before I actually go ahead and share my screen, Miranda has pulled up this handy slide giving us a little bit of an overview of Audacity. So if you've used any other kind of music or sound editing software, you might be familiar with GarageBand, which is on every Apple device. Or you might be familiar, if you are really into music, you probably use different digital audio workstations. So you're a little bit familiar with, not a little, pretty familiar with how it works as far as the main tools that you can use within a piece of software that actually edits audio. So what I am going to do is open up Audacity and play with a little short bass sample and show you a few of the buttons that exist within Audacity and just kind of give an overview of the capabilities that you can pursue through Audacity. Okay, so now I'm going to make you stop sharing, which you've already done, and I'm going to open up this screen with Audacity. So I've already loaded up a sample. One thing to note is that Audacity is pretty picky when it comes to the type of file. I have uploaded a .wav file. So if you're using a .wav or .mp3 file, for the most part, you should be good to go. There are certain situations in which there are specific codecs that you have to download. And if that's the case, Audacity is going to tell you what you need to download and direct you to the webpage to download the specific codec. Excuse me. All right, so I have loaded this sample. What does it sound like? We can click on this play button. And hopefully you heard that. That's just a bass note. Okay. What else can I do here? I wanted to loop this. Let's see how I can loop it. Let me go ahead and click in here. If I'm playing this, how can I loop it so that it continues to play? Uh, there we go. It was under playing. I knew I saw it. Okay. So this seems super non-intuitive, hence why it took me so long to find it again. So under transport, if we go to playing, I want to just loop this sound. So I'm gonna go ahead and loop play. Alternatively, I can also use a keyboard shortcut, which is listed here as Shift Space. So if I don't want to remember all of that, I'm gonna go ahead and just click Shift Space. And now we have a loop going on. And I can go ahead and stop that if that's getting annoying. I can generate sounds like a chirp. And I can preview what this sounds like if it's going to make a sound. I can manage the presets that exist here, either by saving, if I've changed anything, which I have not, or if I have changed something, I can go back to the default settings. I can add effects like echo. I would have to select the audio first, which I can do by scrolling over and dragging. And I'll go back to echo, and I can modify these presets. Delay time is just the echo time. Decay factor is how much the sound degrades. Let's just go with those and see what it sounds like. Not too much different. So we can play with those presets to get a more dramatic effect. And if I'm stuck, there's a whole help section here. We can use quick help, or we could go to the manual to just get a good understanding of all of the capabilities of Audacity. So let's go ahead and check out what this manual looks like, which is going to take me to a whole new screen, which I don't think you guys can see right now, or can you? Didn't think so. Alrighty. Linked within the tool of Audacity, under the help section, is the Audacity manual, updated for the latest version. There's a lot in here to read through. So when in doubt, absolutely dig into the manual and the other forms of help that exist within the tool. And I'm gonna go ahead and stop there and pass the baton over to Miranda.
Sweet, thank you for the multiple tutorials on open source software.
Hopefully you guys got something out of that and are inspired to experiment.
Yes, yeah, I love free things. I'm gonna share my screen. Go back up. I'm going to be talking about Openshot and other types of video editing software that are free. And a great thing that we can do is we can use that Audacity tool to like mix and master different sounds, and then we can upload them onto the videos that we're creating in Openshot. So you can kind of like play around with all of this. I'm sure you can use Inkscape as like a still frame animation tool, and then upload those animations to Openshot and add in your own like soundtracks that you create, so you can kind of just like customize everything, which I think is really rad. Openshot is a free and open source video editing software. You can cut, slice, and edit video footage similar to Adobe Premiere. There's probably like some hiccups that are different than Adobe Premiere because it is open source and people pay for like very, very high quality stuff. But I think you can do a lot of really cool stuff with Openshot. I'm also going to mention Screencastify and Screencast-O-Matic. I took a class on how to use these, and they're screencasting tools, so they're not like totally video editing software, but they have video editing capabilities. These are really great if you're like a teacher or somebody that's leading classes on Zoom like we are, and you want to record them. And maybe you don't have like a paid Zoom subscription and you want to use a different type of video editing and recording software. They also have like customizable mouses and different things like that. And I think the editing software is pretty intuitive, although they do have time limits and they aren't open source. They're just free or low cost. I'm going to stop this share. I'm going to share another screen. Can you see this screen? This is Openshot. It's a little weird on my laptop because my laptop is so small, so the text is pretty big and you can't like fully see the entire screen. But you can go up here to full screen and it should like open it up a little bit more for you. You can also drag these little bars up and down so you can see all of your different tracks. And all of these buttons are pretty intuitive. If you hover over them, you'll see different things that you can do. So I'm going to import some files. And I downloaded a couple videos that I took on my phone. So importing this one of water. And this one is like some blurry chicken video. These chickens are like waiting outside of a door. So you can kind of like mix these together, do whatever you need to, but this is just kind of where you store all your videos, and you can drag them to different tracks. So if I'm dragging them to track 1, this one's longer than that one, I can cut it. So right now my like scissor tool is selected and the magnet tool is selected. And when the scissor tool is selected, I can cut it at different time points. I can break it up, do all sorts of things. And I'm not like a video editor, so I'm sure that you all know more than I do about video editing. But this tool seems very intuitive, even if you don't know a lot about video editing. And then you can press play. And you can kind of like, it's going to show the chicken video, but then it's going to stop and then it's going to show the ocean video. You can also pause it. You can drag these different things around by deselecting this little tool. So I can drag this closer and like kind of make like a cohesive video. There's also transitions and effects. So they have little tutorials that pop up that are super helpful. But you can kind of transition so it's like a lot smoother between the different segments of the video. Effects are like high contrast, low contrast. And then emojis, these look like kind of like they're straight out of 2003, but you can add them wherever you want. So all of those things are possible with this one. And then whenever you're done, you can export your video. So I can export my video and you can save it in advanced or simple settings to wherever you want to. And it should take a little bit, but then you will have your video. And if you're experienced with video editing, you can probably do a lot of really cool stuff with this. But I'm also going to share a different screen. And all of these programs require like a little bit of time to download, but they are worth it. Let's see. Share my browser. So really quickly, this is like the homepage for Screencastify. They have like both paid and non-paid, like different sections. But this is one I use a lot because it's like a Google Chrome extension. So you can just get it and do kind of similar things to the Zoom recording, but like you can make your windows smaller, bigger. And I think the design is pretty clear. Also gonna show this one. This is Screencast-O-Matic. And these links will be in the follow-up email, but they're both really good for different teaching videos. Openshot, this is their whole main page website. They have all the products, and then they have a whole help manual similar to Audacity. And then Audacity's website, I can move this around. This is Audacity's website. They also have like help, FAQ, tours, etc. And if you know how to code, you can customize both of those. But yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing. Thank you for listening to my very short tutorial on how to use video editing software that I haven't used before, but I know that it's really good from different people that have more experience than I do.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
the main connection, the main thing is all of these resources are free and available to the public. And in this new brave world of the internet, there's not that many tools that are actually free. You don't have to put in any credit card information for a free trial. It's literally just free. And if you are savvy enough and already know how to code and are already into that, you can basically mold these tools to how you need them to work for you. Thank you if you have joined us for the first time, for joining us for Open Source for Creatives Part 2. If you have joined us for the second time, in addition to Open Source for Creatives Part 1, we hope that you have gained a new level of knowledge in regards to these tools, and we hope that you are inspired to use these tools in your creative practices. Thank you.